It was a Thursday afternoon when Frank called. I still remember the way the sun came through my office window, the way my coffee had gone cold while I buried myself in paperwork. The ringtone broke the quiet, and when I saw Frank's name flash on the screen, I smiled without thinking. We'd been friends since high school, and in all our years together, he never called unless it was something serious. "Hey man," I answered, leaning back in my chair. Frank's voice was low, careful. "Mike, you got a minute?" Immediately, I knew something was off. Frank wasn't the type to beat around the bush. "For you?" "Always." "What's going on?" There was a pause. I could hear him breathing, gathering his words. "Look, I wasn't gonna say anything at first. Figured maybe it was nothing. Could have been work-related. You know? Business is business." I sat up straighter. "Frank, just tell me." He sighed. "It's Jessica." My stomach tightened. "What about her?" "I've been reviewing the outside camera feeds, the ones covering the back lot and side entrance. You know, standard checkups." Another pause. "Mike, there's this car. A black Lexus. Picks her up, drops her off, regularly." I frowned, confused but not panicked yet. "So? Maybe she has meetings off-site. Clients sometimes prefer neutral locations." "That's what I thought too," Frank said. "First time I saw it, I didn't think twice. Could have been business. But it's not just once. It's a lot. Always the same car. Same driver." "Who's the driver?" He hesitated, and that hesitation told me more than anything else. "Todd's car, Mike. It's registered to the firm." I blinked, staring at the stack of papers on my desk without seeing them. "Todd, my business partner, my supposed friend." Frank kept going, his voice steady like he was delivering bad news at a funeral. "Times don't match any meetings you or I know about. Some evenings. Some long lunches. Saturdays sometimes." "You sure?" I asked, even though deep down, I already knew. "Yeah, I'm sure. I wouldn't have called you if I wasn't." I leaned forward, pressing the heel of my hand into my forehead. It didn't make sense. Jessica and I built everything together. The company, the house, the life. Todd had been with us nearly from the beginning. He'd eaten at our table. We'd toasted each other's birthdays. "I can send you the footage," Frank said quietly, "if you want." I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. "No, not yet." There was a beat of silence between us. "Mike," Frank said finally, "I'm sorry, man. I really am." "Thanks, Frank. I appreciate you telling me. Keep this between us, all right?" "Of course." I hung up and sat there for a long time, the hum of the office filling my ears. Outside my window, the parking lot shimmered in the heat. Inside, my world started to tilt. At first, I wanted to storm over to Jessica, confront her, demand explanations. But something in me, something older, colder, stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was instinct. Instead, I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a legal pad, and started writing. Not a letter, not a threat, a plan. Because if they thought they could betray me and keep everything we had built together, they were wrong. I was going to let them think they had one, and then I was going to take it all away. That night, Jessica came home like nothing was wrong. She kissed me on the cheek, poured herself a glass of wine, and started chatting about some charity event we were supposed to attend. Her voice was easy, her smile relaxed. I watched her carefully, studying every move, every lie wrapped up in normalcy. "You okay, Mike?" she asked at one point, tilting her head in that way she always did when she wanted to play concerned. I smiled. I smiled so hard it hurt. "Yeah, Jess. Just tired." She accepted that answer without a second thought, curling up on the couch and flipping through her phone, probably texting Todd right under my nose. I watched her, and in that moment, I knew. She had no idea. No idea that the man sitting across from her wasn't broken. He was sharpening his knives. I didn't sleep much that night. I laid there in bed, staring up at the ceiling while Jessica snored softly beside me, curled into the same comfortable routine we'd fallen into over the years. It was strange, almost funny in a sick way, how betrayal didn't change the little things right away. The house still smelled like fresh laundry. The dog still pawed at the bedroom door around midnight. My wife, my business, my entire life, they all looked intact. But underneath it all, rot was spreading. I kept thinking back to how it all began. Jessica and I started the company out of our garage, two broke kids with more ambition than sense. I handled the operations, the growth, the hard calls. She handled the image, the branding, the people. We were a good team. We built it from the ground up. Late nights, ramen dinners, scraping by until that first big contract changed everything. Todd came in later. At first, he was just a consultant, smooth talker, knew how to work a room better than I ever could. Jessica vouched for him, said he was trustworthy, said we needed someone like him to take the business to the next level. I trusted her judgment, trusted Todd. I trusted everybody except the one person I should have kept an eye on. We grew fast. New offices, new hires, bigger contracts. The money started coming in steady, and with it came the lifestyle upgrades. A better house in the suburbs. A couple vacations. Jessica got her Audi. I got a new truck. We started feeling like we had really made it. And somewhere along the way, without me even noticing, I stopped being her partner and started being just a convenience. Looking back now, the signs were all there. The long client dinners she never wanted to talk about. The sudden interest in her appearance. New dresses, new gym membership, new perfumes. Todd started hanging around more outside of work hours. Casual invitations to group events that somehow always ended up just being the three of us. And I, like an idiot, kept telling myself it was nothing. Because that's what you do when you're in love. You lie to yourself just enough to sleep at night. I turned over in bed, watching her in the dark. She looked so peaceful, innocent. It made my skin crawl. I knew I couldn't confront her yet. No screaming, no slamming doors, no messy, emotional breakdowns. Jessica and Todd weren't just playing games with my marriage. They were tied into my business, my finances, my future. If I made the wrong move too early, they'd circle the wagons, protect themselves, maybe even find a way to push me out legally. No, I needed time. Time to make them believe they had the upper hand. Time to set the stage so that when I pulled the rug out, they wouldn't even realize they were falling until they hit the ground. The next morning, I got up before sunrise, just like always. Made coffee, checked emails, paid a few bills. Jessica came downstairs an hour later, wrapped in a silk robe, hair messy, smiling like the woman I thought I married. Morning, she said, kissing me on the head. Big day today, huh? I nodded, pretending not to notice the subtle excitement in her voice. She wasn't talking about business. As she sipped her coffee and scrolled through her phone, I quietly drafted an email to our accountant. I needed a full audit. No reason, just routine. Next, I started digging into company assets. Accounts, properties, trademarks. What was in my name? What was jointly held? What would happen if certain lines of credit quietly dried up? It was going to take time. Months. Maybe longer. But that was fine. I was a patient man. Jessica thought she was smart. Todd thought he was untouchable. They had no idea that I was already lighting the fuse beneath their feet. And when it blew, there wouldn't be anything left standing. Not the business. Not the marriage. Not a single thing they thought they had won. I smiled into my coffee mug, and Jessica never even noticed. Over the next few weeks, life continued like nothing had changed. Jessica still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Todd still slapped me on the back during meetings, cracking jokes like we were brothers. The office still buzzed with emails, conference calls, quarterly projections. On the surface, everything was normal. Underneath, I was laying the groundwork for their downfall. It started small. Minor mistakes on my part. A shipment sent to the wrong address. A supplier paid a little late. Nothing that would raise too many alarms, just enough to slow things down, chip away at our reputation. Jessica thought it was just the company growing pains. Todd blamed the new hires. No one suspected me. I made sure to stay late at the office more often. Jessica loved it. Gave her more free evenings to do whatever she wanted without the burden of pretending. And me? I used the time to dig deeper into the company's foundations, contracts, client relationships, insurance policies. I took note of every vulnerability we'd ever ignored when things were good. One by one, I started quietly moving the good accounts. I reached out to a few trusted clients under the radar, hinted that I was planning a new venture, and if they valued the personal relationship, maybe they should start thinking about future options. I never said anything outright, nothing that could trace back to me legally, just enough that seeds of doubt were planted in the minds that mattered. Meanwhile, I began bleeding the company dry. New expenses appeared: consulting fees, equipment upgrades, marketing pushes. All legitimate on paper, but every dollar spent was a dollar funneled carefully through layers of shell companies and holding accounts I'd set up months earlier. Jessica signed off on every expense without question. Todd barely skimmed the reports before giving them his blessing. They were so busy thinking they were pulling a fast one on me, they never realized who was actually pulling the strings. One afternoon, as I sat in a meeting pretending to listen to Jessica pitch some new partnership opportunity Todd had arranged, I caught a glimpse of the two of them exchanging a look. It was subtle. Most people wouldn't have caught it. That flicker of private understanding, the secret smile they thought was hidden behind professionalism. But I saw it, and it only fueled my resolve. Jessica wrapped up the presentation with her usual polish, and Todd leaned back in his chair like he was already counting the future profits. "This deal could be a game changer for us," Todd said, flashing that perfect salesman smile. I nodded, careful not to let anything show. "Sounds promising. Let's move forward." The contract was a disaster. Hidden liabilities, sketchy third-party partnerships. A landmine just waiting to explode. And I let it through. Because sometimes, You don't have to destroy something yourself. Sometimes you just step back and let the fools light their own fuse. At home, Jessica was happier than she had been in months. She started cooking again, laughing more, acting like the woman I'd fallen in love with. Only now it felt like I was watching a bad actress play a part she barely remembered. "I'm proud of you," she said one night, wrapping her arms around my neck as I sat at the kitchen table working late. "For what?" I asked, keeping my voice light. /in/in for sticking it out, for being strong. "I know things haven't been easy lately." /in/ and I smiled at her. The kind of smile you give someone when you know they're already dead and just don't realize it yet. /in/in, anything for you, Jess. /in/ and I meant it. Anything, including tearing down everything she thought she had secured. By the end of that quarter, the cracks were starting to show. Our numbers dipped. Clients grew restless. Suppliers started demanding upfront payments Jessica and Todd didn't know we couldn't really afford. Cash flow problems appeared. Rumors started swirling. Jessica and Todd worked harder, argued more, pushed new deals to cover the old ones. And through it all, I stayed the same. Steady, calm, reliable. Because sometimes the best way to destroy a castle isn't to storm the gates. It's to quietly poison the well and let the kingdom rot from the inside out. By mid-year, the panic started to seep through the walls. It wasn't loud at first, it was the little things. The way Jessica stayed later at the office, tapping nervously at her phone. The way Todd snapped at the accounting department over minor budget questions. The way the new interns whispered in the break room, sensing something was off even if they didn't know what. I watched it unfold with a calm, steady hand. Cash flow was tighter than ever. Vendors were pulling back. Contracts that should have been routine renewals stalled or mysteriously fell through. Our usual lines of credit dried up, not because of anything overt, but because I'd carefully nudged our debt-to-income ratios just enough to make the banks uncomfortable. Todd tried to fix it the way guys like him always do: bluster, fake confidence, promises he couldn't back up. Jessica started hosting client events to drum up new business, the kind that drained even more money from the accounts we couldn't afford to lose. They were frantic. I was patient. At home, Jessica pretended everything was fine. She still cooked elaborate dinners sometimes, dressing up like she used to back when we first started dating. She still cuddled next to me on the couch, laughing at bad TV shows, texting Todd under a blanket while pretending it was a client. She still whispered about future vacations, kids someday, a bigger house, once the business bounces back. I smiled. I kissed her. I whispered back. And every night, after she fell asleep, I logged into accounts she didn't know about. I shifted money, paid legal retainer fees, built my ark for the flood I was engineering. One Friday afternoon, Todd stormed into my office without knocking. "Mike, we got a problem," he said, tossing a folder onto my desk. I flipped it open casually. It was a notice from one of our biggest clients, terminating their contract. Effective immediately. "They're pulling out," Todd said, pacing. "We can't afford to lose them. Not right now." I leaned back, giving him the same look I'd given him 100 times over the years. The look of a partner, of a friend. "What do you want me to do, Todd?" "Beg them." "No," he snapped. "I want you to fix it. This company is your baby, right? Time to step up." I almost laughed in his face. Step up? I was the only reason this place hadn't already burned to the ground. "I'll see what I can do," I said smoothly. Todd cursed under his breath and stormed back out. I sat there, tapping the folder against my desk, feeling the sweet hum of justice roll through me. Later that night, Jessica brought up the same client over dinner. "Mike, maybe you should be more aggressive," she said, sipping her wine. "Maybe you're too passive sometimes. Clients want energy, you know? Drive." I nodded, pretending to chew over her words like they were fresh and insightful. "You're probably right, Jess. I'll try harder." She smiled, pleased with herself, and texted furiously under the table, probably reporting into Todd. Meanwhile, the bank started calling. Our loan officers, who had once been eager to extend credit, now danced around terms like restructuring and increased scrutiny. Jessica handled most of those calls, trying to smooth things over. But charm doesn't pay invoices. And Todd? He was useless unless there was a spotlight on him. The walls were closing in. And just to make sure, I took it one step further. I started planting little ideas among the staff. "Maybe the company's growing too fast," I would say casually by the coffee machine. "You think management's making good choices lately?" I'd ask during casual chats. Nothing overt. Nothing that could be traced back to me. Just enough to make the whispers grow. Just enough to make sure that when everything came crashing down, Jessica and Todd wouldn't just lose the company. They'd lose the trust, the goodwill, the respect they thought they had. they'd be left with nothing. Exactly what they deserved. The real beauty of a slow collapse is how normal everything looks, right up until the very last second. Jessica was deep in planning our future. New marketing pushes, new partnerships. Every night, she buzzed with excitement about how things were finally turning around. Todd doubled down too, promising the staff big bonuses after the next turnaround quarter. He even leased a new BMW, strutting around the office like a man who had everything under control. And I kept smiling. I kept working. I kept sharpening the blade they couldn't see. The next step was the house. Our dream home sat on 2 acres just outside the city, a place we had poured our savings into years ago. Big wraparound porch. Garden Jessica never quite maintained. It wasn't just a house, it was a symbol. So I leveraged it, quietly, legally. Took out a second mortgage for business liquidity, signed off with Jessica's cheerful blessing. If it helps the company, she said one night, pouring herself another glass of wine, then it's worth it. We're investing in our future. I nodded, kissed her forehead, and made sure the paperwork sailed right through. The money? It disappeared into the same slow bleed I'd engineered everywhere else. Debt stacked on debt. Balances shifted. Interest rates quietly climbed. The cracks were widening, but they still didn't look down. One evening, I walked into the kitchen to find Jessica humming to herself, stirring a pot of something on the stove. "Mike," she said brightly, "guess what? Todd thinks he found an investor who can help us. A big one. Might even buy a minority share." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Sounds great," I said. "When's the meeting?" "Next week. Just Todd and me. We'll handle the pitch." She smiled, almost giddy. "You don't have to worry about anything, honey. Todd says you've been carrying the company long enough. It's our turn now." Our turn. I nearly laughed right there in the kitchen. Instead, I kissed her on the cheek and told her I was proud of her. Because when the time came, the investor would pull out. Not because of me. I'd never leave fingerprints that obvious. But because once they ran their due diligence, they'd see the financial disaster Jessica and Todd were standing on. No serious investor would touch it. At the office, I made my final moves. I accidentally forwarded sensitive financial reports to a few rival firms. Not enough to constitute theft, just enough to raise eyebrows. Whispers spread quickly in our industry, and once doubt seeped in, trust dried up like a puddle under desert sun. Staff turnover climbed. Our best project manager resigned. Our most reliable supplier started demanding full payment upfront. Jessica and Todd kept fighting harder, throwing good money after bad, chasing ghosts they couldn't catch. Meanwhile, I started shopping for apartments under a fake name. A small, clean place, nothing fancy. Paid up 6 months in advance with the private savings they didn't know I had. Every piece was lining up perfectly. 2 years of patience. 2 years of playing the fool. 2 years of sharpening the blade. It was almost time to swing it. One Saturday afternoon, as Jessica flipped through house renovation magazines on the porch, she looked up and said, "Mike, after the new investor signs on, I was thinking we could finally remodel the kitchen. Maybe even the bathroom too." I smiled at her, feeling nothing but the cold satisfaction of a man who knows the end is already written. "Sounds like a plan, Jess," I said. In a few weeks, she'd be lucky if she had a kitchen at all. Because when the bottom finally dropped out, when the house was repossessed, the accounts frozen, the business shuttered, it wouldn't just be the end of her kitchen dreams. It would be the end of her fantasy life, the life she thought she could build on lies. And me? I'd be long gone. It started with a letter. A crisp white envelope from the bank, delivered to our mailbox like any other piece of mail. Jessica didn't even open it at first. She tossed it on the kitchen counter, humming to herself, too busy browsing vacation rentals on her tablet to notice. I waited until she left for her work dinner, probably another rendezvous with Todd, before I picked it up. I didn't need to open it. I already knew what it said. Final notice. Default pending. Foreclosure imminent. Everything was falling right on schedule. By Monday morning, the phone call started. Vendors demanding overdue payments. The bank manager urgently requesting a sit-down. Our accountant, the one I had carefully manipulated into seeing only the surface numbers, emailing Jessica with serious concerns. At first, Jessica brushed it off. "It's a paperwork error," she told Todd with a confident laugh. "We just need to shift a few payments around, that's all." Todd nodded, but even he looked pale around the edges. He wasn't built for pressure. He was built for cocktail hours and golf course deals, not for real storms. And the storm was just beginning. Our big investor canceled the meeting without explanation. Jessica cried that night. Real tears this time, fat and messy, the kind you can't fake. "I don't understand," she said, wiping at her mascara-streaked cheeks. "We were so close. We just needed one break." I held her, rubbing circles on her back. "We'll figure it out," I whispered. And I meant it. I would figure it out, just not in the way she thought. Todd, for his part, tried to rally. He called emergency board meetings, proposed desperate mergers, suggested risky loans. I sat through it all, quiet and agreeable, nodding in the right places, letting him dig the hole deeper. By the end of the month, we missed payroll for the first time in company history. Jessica stayed late every night after that, practically living at the office, trying to patch holes in a ship that had already sunk. Todd started avoiding me, and Jessica probably feeling the walls closing in around him too. The pressure was eating them alive. And still, neither of them suspected me. One night, around 2 in the morning, I found Jessica sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by spreadsheets and bank statements. She looked up when she heard me. Her eyes were hollow, her voice a ghost of its usual cheer. "Mike," she whispered, "what if we lose everything?" I sat down beside her, pretending to think it over. "Then we start over," I said. "You and me, together." She smiled weakly and leaned her head on my shoulder. And in that moment, with the ashes of our life swirling around her, Jessica still believed we were partners. Still believed I was the fool who would carry her broken promises on my back. The next morning, I filed the final paperwork. The business was finished. The debts, the defaults, the pending lawsuits, all of it was too big to stop now. The house was a ticking clock too. 60 days and the bank would own it outright. Jessica tried everything, begged Todd to find another investor, applied for emergency loans that were instantly denied, called in favors from friends who now wouldn't even answer her calls. She cried more, fought more, and slowly, inevitably, broke apart. Todd, true to his nature, started fading away the moment it became clear the money was gone. He stopped coming to the office, stopped answering texts, stopped pretending. Jessica didn't notice right away. She was too busy trying to save a life that was already over. And me? I kept showing up every day, kept acting like I believed we could still turn it around, kept sitting at the conference table with the dying company swirling around me, calm as a surgeon, because I knew the truth. It wasn't dying. It was dead. They just hadn't realized it yet. The foreclosure notice came on a Wednesday. Jessica opened it at the kitchen table while I poured myself a coffee, pretending not to watch her closely. She unfolded the letter with trembling fingers, her eyes scanning the cold, brutal language. Notice of intent to foreclose. Property to be repossessed in 30 days if outstanding debts are not satisfied. The color drained from her face. She looked up at me like a lost child. "Mike, is this real?" I walked over slowly, glanced at the letter, and gave a small frown. "Looks that way," I said. "Maybe it's still fixable. We'll call the bank." She nodded quickly, desperate for any sign of hope. But we both knew it was over. The next few days were a blur of chaos. Jessica called every number she could think of, old clients, distant relatives, even friends she hadn't spoken to in years. No one wanted to lend her money. No one wanted to touch a sinking ship. She even tried to call Todd. I watched from the hallway as she paced the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, voice tight with desperation. "Todd, please, call me back. We can figure this out together. Please, Todd." But Todd was done playing hero. He had his own problems now, creditors circling him, too. It didn't take long for Jessica to realize that when the money dried up, so did Todd's love. 2 weeks later, I came home to find Jessica sitting on the bottom step of the staircase, a duffel bag beside her. Her eyes were red. Her voice was small. "Mike," she said, "I think Todd, he's gone. He's not answering. His office is empty. His number's disconnected." I dropped my keys into the bowl by the door like I hadn't been waiting for this exact moment. "I'm sorry, Jess," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Really?" She wiped at her cheeks with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "What do we do now? We're gonna lose everything, Mike. The house, the company, everything we built." Her voice cracked on the last word. "We built." Those 2 words tasted bitter in my mouth. I had built this life. I had bled for it. Jessica and Todd had just been passengers along for the ride, until they thought they could hijack the ship. We moved through the next week like ghosts. I started packing my things little by little. Nothing that would raise suspicion, just a few boxes here and there. Jessica was too broken to notice. The final nail came on a rainy Monday. A formal court letter, delivered by a man who barely met my eyes as he handed it over. Jessica read it aloud through sobs. The company was officially filing for bankruptcy, pending seizure of all business assets. She collapsed onto the living room floor, clutching the paper like it could somehow change if she just held it tight enough. I stood over her for a long moment, and for the first time in years, I felt free. That night, while she cried herself to sleep upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table, filling out one last form. The divorce papers, already signed by me, already notarized. I slid them into a manila envelope, addressed it to Jessica, and left it sitting on the kitchen counter, right next to the foreclosure notice, right next to the final bankruptcy notice. A neat little collection of consequences, none of them screaming, none of them violent, just cold, silent facts. I left before sunrise. Didn't slam the door. Didn't leave a note. Just grabbed the last of my bags, my private savings hidden away safely, and stepped out into the cool morning air. As I pulled away from the house that Jessica had once dreamed about, I didn't feel regret. I felt clarity, because in the end, they hadn't just betrayed me. They had bet everything on my weakness. And they lost. I drove across the state line before the sun was fully up. My new apartment was small but clean, a one-bedroom overlooking a quiet park. Nothing fancy. Nothing that screamed money. Exactly how I wanted it. The lease was already paid for the next 12 months. Utilities set up. New bank accounts opened under my name only. Everything Jessica thought she knew about me, about my life, my habits, my future, had been left behind, buried under the rubble she helped create. Later that day, my phone buzzed once. A number I knew by heart, now flashing unknown caller. Jessica. I let it ring until it went silent. Listened to the voicemail come through a few minutes later, the shaky sound of her voice filling the tiny speaker. Mike, please. I don't know what to do. Everything's gone. The house, the company, Todd. She choked on the name. He left. He took what little was left and disappeared. I have nothing. I need you. Please call me back. Please. Another beep. Another message. Then another. Each one more desperate than the last. Each one more hollow. I sat there listening, feeling nothing. No rage. No sorrow. No temptation. Jessica had made her choices. And now, finally, she was living with them. Todd? He had always been a coward. The minute the money dried up, he ran, like rats from a sinking ship. Jessica had traded a man who built her future for a man who couldn't even stay for the wreckage. It was almost poetic. By the end of the week, the house was officially repossessed. Jessica was served the final court notices. She tried to fight it at first, filed paperwork, begged for extensions, cried to lawyers who saw right through her. It didn't matter. The accounts were empty. The debts were real. And her prince was long gone. There was no miracle coming. I heard later, through a mutual acquaintance, that Jessica moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. No car, no savings, no friends left to bail her out. She picked up a part-time job at some strip mall boutique, barely scraping by. No Todd, no husband, no safety net. Just Jessica exactly as she had made herself. I kept the divorce proceedings clean, efficient, professional. The papers had been airtight. She couldn't touch the savings I had set aside for myself. She couldn't claim alimony from a man who, on paper, was broke and jobless. She signed, defeated, without even contesting. I didn't even need to see her to know what she looked like when she did it. That was the final gift she gave me, surrender without a word. A few months later, on a clear spring morning, I stood on the balcony of my new place, sipping black coffee, staring out at the park. The air smelled different here. Fresh, unburdened. I thought about the life I had left behind, the lies, the betrayal, the slow, methodical destruction, and I realized something. I didn't miss any of it. Not the house, not the business, not even her. Because sometimes, survival isn't about winning the battle. It's about making sure the enemy doesn't even realize they've lost until it's far, far too late. Jessica once said we were a team, that we built everything together. But what she never understood was simple. She was building sandcastles. I was laying foundations. And when the tide came in, only one of us knew how to swim. It didn't take long for the world to forget about Jessica. Without the business, without the house, without Todd propping her up with cheap promises, she faded fast. The people she once called friends, the same ones who toasted champagne at our Christmas parties and laughed a little too hard at Todd's jokes, they disappeared overnight. No one wants to be associated with a sinking ship. A few months after the divorce finalized, I heard bits and pieces through old mutual contacts. Jessica was renting a tiny apartment above a laundromat, driving a beat-up used sedan with a cracked windshield, working 2 part-time jobs just to keep the lights on, a cashier at a gas station during the day, a server at some dingy bar at night. The woman who once spent afternoons planning dream vacations to Maui was now struggling to afford groceries. It was cruel, maybe, but it was also fair. Life has a funny way of humbling people who think they're too clever to ever lose. Todd? He was worse off. Turns out, he had debts of his own. The kind of debts that attract the wrong kind of attention. Rumors said he skipped town in the middle of the night, owing thousands to people you don't want to owe anything to. Last anyone heard, he was sleeping in cheap motels down south, living off the kindness of strangers who hadn't caught on yet. Jessica tried to reach him at first, called, texted, begged, but Todd was good at one thing, running when it mattered most. Just like he ran from me when the business crumbled. Just like he ran from her when the bills came due. I never answered any of Jessica's calls. Never replied to her emails. Never acknowledged the tear-stained letters she sent to my lawyer's office, pleading for some kind of second chance. She wasn't reaching out because she loved me. She was reaching out because she had no one left, because she thought the man she betrayed, the one she had dismissed so easily, would still be standing there, waiting to pick up the pieces. She was wrong. One message she left still sticks with me, though. I played it back once, sitting in my new apartment, coffee in hand, just to remind myself why I had done what I did. Mike, please. Her voice cracked, raw and real. I was stupid. I see that now. I never meant for things to get this bad. I thought you'd always be there. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I'm sorry. Please call me back. Please. But there was nothing left to say. Her apology didn't change anything. Her regret didn't rebuild the life she helped destroy. Some mistakes cost more than sorry can repay. Some debts you can never crawl out of. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what Jessica thinks about now. If she remembers the nights we stayed up until 2 in the morning, building business plans over pizza boxes and bad coffee. If she remembers the vacations we scrimped and saved for, the ones she used to brag about later. If she remembers the promises she made. Or if she just remembers the ending. The foreclosure notices. The bankruptcy hearings. The empty bank accounts. The quiet sound of a door closing, soft and final, without a single goodbye. I didn't destroy Jessica. She destroyed herself. I just gave her enough rope to finish the job.